Hello and welcome to Civic Saturday, Prince George's County. We are so glad that you have joined us today. For those of you that are new to Civic Saturday, this is an opportunity for us to join together, to nurture a spirit of shared purpose and consider how we make this a better society and a better place to live. It may feel like a faith gathering to some, and that's not by accident. Civic Saturdays are not about religion in a traditional sense, but what we might call American civic religion. Civic Saturdays are arranged in this format because the founders understood that organized religion has figured out a few things about how to bring people together. While this gathering is virtual, I happen to live in Prince George's County, Maryland, which serves as a backdrop for how I view community locally. Today you will hear music and poetry, readings from civic texts, and a civic sermon highlighting the impact of two of our nation's great leaders as we celebrate Women's History Month. For those who are interested, there will be an opportunity to join in a group discussion via Zoom, and we'll share that link in the chat later. Feel free to use the chat throughout our time together as a way to engage with the content and with one another. Again, we're glad you joined us.
Until we can get people to recognize that they themselves have to make the struggle and have to make the fight for freedom every day in the year, every year, until they win it. Thank you.
And if the Freedom Democratic Party is not seated now, I question America. Is this America, the land of the free and the home of the brave, where we have to sleep with our telephones off of the hook because our lives be threatened daily, because we want to live as decent human beings in America? Thank you.
Won't you celebrate with me what I have shaped into a kind of life? I had no model, born in Babylon, both non-white and woman. What did I see to be except myself? I made it up here on this bridge between starshine and clay, my one hand holding tight my other hand. Come celebrate with me that every day something has tried to kill me and has failed.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Oh, everywhere I go, Lord, I'm gonna let it shine.
Fannie Lou Hamer, 1964 Democratic National Convention. What I'm trying to point out now is when you take a very close look at this American society, it's time to question these things. We have made an appeal for the President of the United States and the Attorney General to please protect us in Mississippi. And I can't understand how it's out of their power to protect people in Mississippi. They can't do that, but when a white man is killed in the Congo, they send people there. And you can always hear this long sob story. You know it takes time. For 300 years, we've been giving them time. And I've been tired so long, now I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And we want a change. We want a change in this society in America because you see, we can no longer ignore the facts in getting our children to sing. We'll say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed? What do we have to hail here? The truth is the only thing gonna free us. And you know, this whole society is sick. And to prove just how sick it was when we was in Atlantic City challenging the National Convention, when I was testifying before the Credentials Committee, I was cut off because they hate to see what they've been knowing all the time. And that's the truth.
All in
Ella Baker, 1964. Until the killing of black men, black mothers' sons become as important to the rest of the country as the killing of a white mother's son, we who believe in freedom cannot rest until this happens.
Deep river, my home is over Jordan. Oh, deep river, Lord, I want to cross over into campground. Deep river, my home is over Jordan. Oh, deep river, Lord, I want to cross over into campground. Oh, don't you want to go to that gospel feast, that promised land where all is peace? Oh, deep river, Lord, I want to cross over into campground.
I wish I knew how it would feel to be free is a jazz song written by Billy Taylor and Richard Carroll Lamb, also known as Dick Dallas. The most widely known version was recorded by Nina Simone on her Silk and Soul album. The song began as a jazz-composed instrumental, but Nina Simone's voice took it to another level. Scholar Salah Misha Tillett states, while Taylor's version brings us to church, Simone brings the church to the streets. Simone transposes Taylor's original into a group participation song, more suitable for a protest march than the Methodist pew. Instead of stripping down the musical accompaniment, she revved it up, inviting more and more people to bring freedom down to earth. In an interview on the Great American Dream Machine, a weekly television broadcast on PBS, Simone was asked, "What does freedom mean to you?" She hesitated for a moment, but ultimately she confessed, "I'll tell you what freedom is to me. No fear. If I could have that half my life, no fear." It is something really, really to feel, like a new way of seeing. Have you ever stopped to consider what freedom means to you? And as much as the national anthem declares America to be the land of the free, we owe it to ourselves to reflect on what it means to be free. Not only that, but we must determine whether or not we have delivered on the clean and come up with an appropriate response. Our text today featured two women who were committed to the project we call freedom. While women have been central to every significant campaign for human rights and freedom, we too often are unaware of their contributions. And even worse, we fail to know their names. Ella Baker and Fannie Lou Hamer are two such individuals that deserve a place in the canon of those who have contributed to the idea we call America. Baker and Hamer were central to organizing what we have come to call Freedom Summer. The 1964 Freedom Summer Project was strategically designed with an aim to draw the nation's attention to the violent oppression of Black people in Mississippi, who sought to exercise their constitutional right to vote. Is this America, the land of the free and the home of the brave, where our lives be threatened daily because we want to live as decent human beings? Asked Hamer at the Democratic National Convention in Atlantic City, New Jersey. And also during this same summer of awakening, Ella Baker declared, "Until the killing of Black men, Black mother sons, become as important to the rest of the country as the killing of white mother son, we who believe in freedom cannot rest until this happens." Baker delivered those words days after the bodies of James Chaney, Andrew Goodman, and Michael Schwerner had been discovered. The three civil rights activists had been murdered, and the case made national headlines. However, while searching for the three, search terms discovered other bodies of Black Mississippians who had been murdered, signifying what Eddie Glaude calls the value gap, serving as notice that white lives had been valued more than in others, in such a way that Black lives were not warranted the same level of investigation. Many of us would conclude that the vestiges surrounding the value gap still exists, and the work of the Freedom Summer Project remains incomplete. Just consider Atlanta, where a murderer was offered more humanity than the victims of his shooting spree. Our restless souls declare, we who believe in freedom cannot rest until this happens. Restless. State on freedom. The cause of freedom is not the cause of a race or a sect, a party or a class. It is the cause of humankind, the very birthright of humanity. Anna Julia Cooper. While so much of Freedom Summer was the campaign to encourage and organize Black Americans to vote, Baker wanted everyone to understand that what was at stake was much larger than the vote. The fight was for freedom itself. Ella Baker's philosophy of freedom went beyond the immediate. In the article, she states that this was something much bigger than a hamburger or even a giant-sized Coke, pointing to the fight for integration of lunch counters. In her Freedom Day address, she states, all of us stand guilty at this moment for having waited so long to lend ourselves to a fight for freedom, not of Negroes, not of the Negroes of Mississippi, but for the freedom of the American spirit, for the freedom of the human spirit. Baker believed that the fight for true freedom was larger than the struggle for voting rights and bigger than a hamburger and soda. She was committed to the idea that injustice was just not a racial problem, but a human problem. Baker's moral philosophy was grounded in a larger notion for freedom of the human spirit. Too often we conflate democracy to our right to vote and leave it to politicians to improve our lives. Baker preached that strong people do not need strong leaders. Fellow freedom fighter Bob Moses stated that today's commentary and analysis of the movement often missed the crucial point. In addition to challenging the white power structure, the movement also demanded that Black people challenge themselves. Far too many of us are waiting for someone else to save us. And if I'm honest, I've avoided leadership because I felt this need to compare myself to other great leaders, which left me waiting for achievements and certain milestones before assuming leadership. You and I can no longer wait for someone else to provide us or give us permission to initiate what we have always needed, but rarely been afforded. There must be something in each of us that decides that enough is enough. Sick and tired. And I've been tired so long. Now I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And we want change. Those are the words of Fannie Lou Hamer. It was on August 26, 1964, that Fannie Lou Hamer delivered these piercing words, and she spoke before a televised audience at the 1964 Democratic National Convention. While many have heard these iconic line, "I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired," few know the legacy of Fannie Lou Hamer. In her fight for freedom, Hamer lost her job and her ability to remain comfortable and free from threat. But it was in this fight that Hamer dug deep down into her spirit and found her voice. While often criticized for not being the most articulate or well-spoken, she summoned her power to speak in a way that demanded attention. Hamer had a way of telling it like it is. We need more people who tell it like it is. People who don't lean on a publicist or polling to determine what needs to be said. Instead, they understand the heart of the people and respond accordingly. Bob Moses noted that President Lyndon B. Johnson wasn't afraid of Martin Luther King Jr.'s testimony. He was afraid of Fannie Lou Hamer's testimony. In fact, during her speech at the Democratic National Convention, Johnson gave an impromptu press conference with an intent to interrupt her televised testimony. Despite the attempt, Moses recounts, Fannie Lou Hamer became the authentic voice of Mississippi and the struggle of Black people in Mississippi to the nation. Moses goes on to say, you needed someone who expressed Mississippi in their bones to be able to reach through. Hamer understood how it felt to be overlooked and degraded, and she was sick and tired of it. While not blessed with a silver tongue, Fannie Lou Hamer had an ability to connect with people. Myrlie Ever Williams stated, she didn't care what people thought about her. She had a passion and she spoke on that passion. She stepped up when nobody else did. She took a stand and refused to move from it. While I have a love for words and the power they contain, we need less eloquent speech and more people who will step up when nobody else does and who will take a stand and refuse to be moved. In the words of Hamer, and it's time for every American citizen to wake up because now the whole world is looking. Restless, more than woke. Alabama's got me so upset. Tennessee made me lose my rest. The words of Nina Simone. Have you ever tossed and turned in the wee hours of the night, unable to rest or relax as a result of anxiety? Perhaps it was caused by this pandemic or recent civil unrest. I hear Miss Baker, as our students affectionately called her, calling out to us today. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. Baker said, give light and the people will find a way. While we know that it is easier to sleep in the dark, we cannot remain in the darkness. Now, I'm not advocating that you not sleep and avoid getting your proper rest. However, I am suggesting that for freedom's sake, you will have to sacrifice some comforts and be willing to give some things up. Let's go beyond the cliches of being woke. As Mr. Baker said, it's something much bigger than a hamburger or even a giant-sized Coke. Now, I don't have stock in either, but as much as it's bigger than a Coke, freedom won't be won with Kendall Jenner's Pepsi either. Too many of us are claiming to be woke while closing our eyes to anything that would demand change. Now, protests have their place, but what's the long game strategy? Steve Phillips, a Democratic consultant, commissioned a report to analyze where the Democratic Party was making its investments. Now, we won't talk about the Republican Party at the moment, but if a picture was worth 1,000 words, Phillips appropriately named the report the Fannie Lou Hamer Report Card to honor her great legacy. However, 50 years after Hamer's challenge, Phillips said much of the politics is still geared towards chasing white swing voters, and so much of policy is designed to not alienate white swing voters. This takes us back to the value gap, in which white interests matter more than others, even as we count for a changing racial electorate. Now, in fairness to the DNC, progress was exhibited in 220, and we watched Stacey Abrams and LaTosha Brown deliver. Unfortunately, the lack of investment in diversity goes well beyond electoral politics. Just ask folks in Jackson, Mississippi, a city that's 80% Black, They've gone over a month, nearly 2 months, without clean water. Mississippi serves as an example of how these inequities still persist. Hamer said, instead of the land of the free and the home of the brave, it's called in Mississippi the land of the tree and the home of the grave. Sin requires that we recognize things for what they are while holding them accountable against what they should be. Ella Baker was fond of telling a story, and she tells it like this. About 28 years ago, I used to go around making speeches, and I would open up my talk by saying that there was a man who had a health problem, and he was finally told by the doctor that he could save his sight or save his memory, but that he couldn't save both. They asked him, which did he want to save? And he said, my sight, because I would rather see where I am going than remember where I have been. What I am saying, continues Baker, as you must say too, that in order to see where we are going, we must understand where we have been. This calls for a great deal of analytical thinking and evaluation of methods that have been used. We have to begin to think in terms of where do we really want to go and how can we get there. Helen Keller said the only thing worse than being blind is having sight but no vision. What frustrates me often is that while we know something is wrong, we cannot muster enough imagination to consider and create a world in which inequity does not exist. We pretend to want change, but accept more of the same. That's not freedom. Like Lena said, freedom is a new way of seeing. It is the type of seeing that moves you to do. Do you believe in freedom? Because we who believe in freedom cannot rest. We remain restless.
It would feel to be free. I wish I could break all these chains holding me. I wish I could say all the things that I should say. Say them loud, say them clear, for the whole wide world to hear. Oh, I wish I could share all the love that's in my heart. Remove all the bars that keep me and you apart. Oh, I wish you could know what it means to be me. Then you'd see and you'd agree that every man should be free. Oh, I wish I could give all I'm longing to give. I wish I could live like I'm longing to live. Oh, I wish I could do all the things that I can do, although I'm way overdue. I'd be starting anew. Oh, I wish I could be like a bird in the sky. How sweet it would be if I found out I could fly. Oh, I soar to the sun, and I look down at the sea, and I'd sing, 'cause I know. Oh, I'd sing because I know. Yeah, I sing because I know how it feels to be free. Oh, I know how it feels to be free. I know how it feels to be free. I know how it feels to be free.
This concludes this portion of today's gathering. For those of you who are interested, you can join us in a group discussion immediately following the segment, and we'll put that link in the chat once again. But before you go, I'd like to say thank you to a few people. My wife, Natasha, and my sons, Solomon and Samuel. Once again, Real Genius Media, a video production company based right here in Prince George's County, led by Gene Setzer, along with his wife, Jamaica Jones Setzer. Deja Knight, a local singer and a student at nearby Morgan State University who provided us with our songs today. The Greater Washington Community Foundation, who provided fiscal support through the Community Action Awards. Civic University for their training through the Civic Seminary. My colleagues at the Prince George's County Social Innovation Fund, and you for joining us today. We want you to go in freedom.